Hi there and happy Equinox Portal. Or is it the Equinox Portal? Or is it the Eclipse Portal? Maybe it's the Venus underworld retrograde shedding of our self-identity in relationship to self, another portal. But maybe it's also the Mercury retrograde and reconfiguring and resetting our mind and nervous system to be able to still make sense of and gather all the facts and data coherently so that we find clarity of mind and thought portal. But maybe it's also the Mars' direct portal, and there's all of this new drive and energy and initiative, but also aggression and warmongering. Just look to the news. I'm not gonna say names, but it's very obvious. On every side, all kinds of sites, the reluctancy to end war is rather the deeper desire of these powers to be in a perpetual state of war, isn't it? Right? The goal is not to win the war, the goal is perpetual war. But let's not get too focused on the political, socio-economic side of things, but let's stay with the personal and this very significant portal time that we're in. But maybe it's the biggest portal of them all, which is Neptune moving into Aries, leaving Pisces for the first time in its 165-year-long journey through the zodiac portal, which is probably the biggest portal of them all. Is it that portal? Is it that portal? I don't know. Do you? I doubt it. But that's the energy at the moment. The shift between Aries and Pisces, the very end of the zodiac and the very beginning of the zodiac. It's the cosmic alpha and omega, the creation of existence and the dissolution back from existence into the immaterial, Pisces side and the Aries side. And we've got all of these energies here dancing in between the cusp of them, right? So yeah, today it's the equinox, happy equinox. It's the equilibrium between day and night everywhere on planet Earth, between light and shadow, between yin and yang, Shiva, Shakti, whatever you want to call it. And it's always this very significant point, even more so because energetically, the equinox in March is said to be the true beginning of the new year, because that is when the sun enters Aries, leaving that omega point, beginning again with a new alpha point. It's the ending of the true ending of the last energetic year and the true beginning of the new year. From now on the northern hemisphere, the days will get longer, the nights get shorter, and then the southern hemisphere, the reverse. Always a very significant point. But of course, it makes it so much more significant that we are in between eclipses, that Venus and Mercury are both retrograde, and they will both go from early Aries back into Pisces in a couple of days or week. We're still moving towards a solar eclipse in Aries, which would really set things into motion in a different way. But then topped by all of that is topped by that shift from Neptune, right? Neptune is where and how we find collective meaning and the collective storylines, the collective mythologies, where and how we look for transcendence and yearn for transcendence and project ultimate meaning onto reality, but also where we come to a point of dissolution and confusion and dissolving and overwhelm and delusion. The disillusionment of our own illusions, the projections that we projected out onto material reality, where we have to eventually come to a point of realizing, oh, that's not it either, right? So it's a freeing up of illusions, which can be a very painful process nonetheless, emotionally for us human beings. And that really signals, right, we're at the cusp of this immense new beginning with Neptune and Aries. It will dance between Aries and Pisces for the next good year, as will Saturn, and they will only truly be conjunct each other exactly in 2026, even though they'll be within less than a degree in the coming weeks and months. Anyhow, like I already said, energy can be confusing at the moment. We might feel all of this Aries push and fire and new drive and dynamic, even more so it's the beginning of the Mars cycle. Mars is slowly moving out of its retrograde shadow. Yeah, it's not retrograde anymore. You might already feel since a good few weeks, 3-4 weeks, this new initiative or drive or self-confidence and energy and will coming into your system. But because both Venus and Mercury are retrograde right now, we are in between these eclipses, which is always a time of huge endings and huge beginnings, a resetting of energetic structures within our being. But because all of that happens in this context between the very beginning of the zodiac and the very end of the zodiac, it might be very confusing in the sense of we want to push ahead, but then we get pulled back. There is a deeper resolution that wants and needs to happen with the Pisces side of the energies. And what is Pisces also? It's where and how we find hope. It's just like that Neptune archetype of where we long for transcendence and give a sense of deeper spiritual reasoning and meaning to our life, to the direction of our life. It's where we dream up creation and then take it into concrete action and self-identification in Aries. Right? We have to first dream reality into being and then act on it. That's Aries side. Aries says also, I am. Aries is that first point of self-identification. And that getting pulled back, both with Venus and Mercury in the coming days, into Pisces, even though the Sun just entered Aries, right? So we've got all of this back and forth, shows there's a much deeper unraveling that wants to occur here, which would not necessarily follow any rational, logical attempts from our own little minds, our own little ego minds that think we know the way, that think we know what we want. I'm certain I know what I want, but the mystery wants to unravel ourselves here. Unraveling might be very overwhelming, or puzzling, or confusing, might bring up a lot of lessons that are very Saturn in nature, of patience, right? It's very, and also of Saturn and Pisces. Yeah, it'll also dance between Pisces and Aries for the good coming year, but it'll also enter Aries for the very first time in a couple of weeks. So there's also this big ending of the cycle, of the Saturn cycle, which takes 30 years. Right, so there's a 30-year Saturn cycle ending, there's a 165-year Neptune cycle ending, there's this 37-year-long Saturn-Neptune cycle, which has a huge correspondence especially to any and all kinds of socialist ideas or idealisms, including communism, and historically has a huge correspondence to Russia and China, and big dramatic shifts happening in those two domains over the centuries, with its leaders, with its populations, with its social movements. So you can expect to get a lot of very potent transformations happening in those two domains, which will have a big impact on all of us collectively as well. But anyhow, it's the Saturn, it's a Neptune, it's a Saturn-Neptune cycle ending, and then we're also, of course, just finishing up with the eclipses in Aries and Libra. Aries, again, is the first sign, but now the North Node is in Pisces. The North Node always moves backwards, and the North and South Node take 19 years. Hence, we have now these eclipses also moving into Pisces and Virgo. We just had that full moon Virgo eclipse a week ago, which already showed a full moon is always a time of release, or letting go, an emotional confrontation of unconscious material, right? The opposition between Sun and Moon. With Virgo, it might have to do so much, even more so, because just the day afterwards, Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, went retrograde. Might have to do so much with our own inner mental alignment, how it portrays to a sense of self-worth, to the kind of daily routines and rhythms we want to bring to the world in the way of and shape of our work, or the self-identity or lack of self-confidence that we build around these things. So already a big portal happening there, and then Mercury also just shifting retrograde exactly on that day of the lunar eclipse. Oh my god, it's so many things to follow. I hope you can follow. I was barely able to follow the last couple of days or weeks. It's like totally in the vortex and energies myself. But the Mercury retrograde shows that the clarity that we seek is not to be found yet, we might feel this push of Aries, of forward momentum, of there's a new chapter, I can feel it, my subconscious can feel it, everybody here can feel it, there's like big things coming, we don't know yet what it is, but the desire to want to jump the gun, because we desire that sense of certainty and clarity, and I just know it now and I can act now. But Mercury going retrograde from Aries back to Pisces shows there's a deeper process of mental surrender that wants and needs to happen for every single one of us. There's deeper things to reveal, more mysterious currents that want to guide us, of which we're not in control, which is such a difficult thing for our little ego minds and hearts, right? And that happening together also with Venus, and Venus is retrograde. Also from Aries, I want the newness, I can feel it, I can feel this big, tremendous cosmic shifts coming into my field, into the collective field. But any clarity that I think I might have in this moment is still up for review. Even more so once Venus enters Pisces again. The Venus retrograde is also special here because it shows we're not so much necessarily in this moment of the Venus retrograde reviewing our relationship patterns in the biggest way that we might think as outer one-on-one relationships, romantic, friendship, whatever. Yeah, that's also part of Venus, and Venus retrograde, it always is. Even more so if you're maybe Libra rising, or you've got very prominent placements in early Aries. But Aries, like I said, is more that sense of self-identity. Aries says, I am. So the Venus retrograde in Aries is first and foremost about shedding and releasing and deconditioning and restructuring our relationship, Venus, to self, Aries, and self-identity, and the instincts of Aries, the will of Aries, the clarity of, I want to go this way, I'll go this way. Venus retrograde showing like, the Mars cycle might be new, you might be tempted to think that you know what you want or how you can go about achieving it, but Venus shows you no, there's also deeper mystery that still wants to unfold and unravel over the coming days and weeks. We're just in front of that Sun-Venus conjunction, which is the midpoint between the retrograde, in the retrograde cycle, and it's an infusion of Venus with solar light. That often gives the first deep sense of clarity of what this retrograde is about. First part often feels more nebulous, or like I'm not entirely sure. Once that conjunction with the sun happens, it can be like, oh, this is what this process is about. Now I know what I'm dealing with, but oh yeah, now the unconscious stuff can become a bit more conscious. So that'll happen Saturday, Sunday, on 2 degrees of Aries. But Venus will also get back into Pisces. So the shedding of the sense of self-identity with Aries and who we think we want to be or how we want to act in the world also is up for review in a big sense of the Pisces side of where and how can I connect to a deeper sense of trust and faith in the world. Where do I have faith? Maybe also in something higher, in God, Goddess, divine order, cosmos, universe, higher self, soul, love, whatever you want to name it. Or where am I lacking this faith? Where am I lacking in the relationship, Venus? The Venus side and the relationship side to this higher cosmic flow of energy, to this more mysterious and nebulous, I'm not in control part, but where I have to surrender, where we all have to learn to surrender. So, it's a lot. It's a lot. But even though we might be tempted to go out and about and push forward now, even more so since today with the sun entering Aries and just driving forward and going up ahead, and the next weeks will still teach us a lot about humility of spirit, a tenderness to learn to Pisces, go with the flow and surrender and trust and let go and let God, and to embrace the cosmic joke of, if you want to learn the cosmic joke, tell God your plans. The deeper medicine here is definitely one of coming to a place of presence, of Pisces, and right, remember it's also the end of Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn, amongst many other things, is the defensive structures of our ego, but also where and how we judge. Pisces is ultimate reality. Pisces says just it is. Pisces is all that is. It has no end and no beginning. It has no definition. And all the Saturn, all the judgments that we place on reality, that we have ingrained in our conditioned consciousness, are also Pisces up for review, in a sense of learning to let them go and dissolve, and bring it back to spirit, bring it back to flow. So over these coming weeks, while Mercury and Venus are retrograde even more so, you'll feel it a bit more acutely, but then still over the entire coming year, and this is, if I'm giving any kind of prediction for this year, it's this one. There will be tremendous forward momentum and energy, and a lot of drive, a lot of speed, a lot of novelty. Oh my god, holy cow. Uranus in Gemini from early July on, Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Is it the AI revolution and the robots, or the space aliens, or new frontiers in space, new frontiers in our consciousness, right? Neptune is consciousness itself, and Aries, it says there's a new frontier, there's a new heroic journey that we want to embrace collectively, because the old storylines, the old mythologies, the old ways of how society has been living are not working anymore, clearly. But also personally, there's something big and brand new. But there's also still this deeper Pisces lesson of the ultimate omega point of the dissolution of consciousness back to its true source, where everything just is, free from judgments, free from conditions and conditionings that we place on it, and to learn to trust that, which is so mysterious it's beyond words, to trust our heart, our soul, our higher self, the flow of the universe, to trust that things work out for the best, even and especially when over the coming days and weeks and months it might very much look like the opposite at times, right? There is this Aries drive of aggression and fire and fighting and will and self-identity, and this very strong war energy definitely in the field the coming months. I'm not denying that. Been reluctant to speak about it the past months or years, but now we're in it, and now, this is what's up. I'm not predicting anything here. I'm not calling anything in. I'm not in a fear mode myself, but it doesn't mean that greater collective and mainstream society won't be manipulated into that. And all the Neptune, all the glamours, all the illusions, all the mirrors, all the smoke screens you can pull up to bring and direct consciousness of the masses of humanity in a certain direction and believe that as reality, which again ultimately must lead to Neptune dissolution, will definitely be present. But yeah, the deeper lesson is definitely one of presence, of trust and faith, of returning back to source and finding that inner relationship, that's the Venus side, the inner relationship to spirit, the inner relationship to love, the inner relationship to faith, and to trust that beyond all of this realm of manifestation and all of these beautiful, myriad, crazy forms of life, there is something higher, there is something deeper guiding us, protecting us. The more we believe it, the more we can see it. But as long as we want proof, and I gotta see it first to believe it, it will evade us. And that flow is more mysterious. It does not obey our human mind. We can't control it. That's why we can totally freak out with it. Because the grasp of Saturn is just holding onto water. It's holding onto the ether here. It's a slippery fish slipping through our fingers. So the control is not an outer one of trying to control our life or steer it with force and aggression and anger even, resistance to reality, but to come to a place of inner control, holding enough space to be present with all of it, not judging it too much, or trying at least, and releasing that grasp, but only finding the inner control of the only thing I can control is how I react to things and my inner stance. Does it come from a place of ultimate faith and trust and peace, Pisces, or does it come from a place of aggression and judgment? The energies that we don't want to longer see in the world, are we perpetuating them inside of ourselves, or do we hold that counterpoint of stillness and peace and presence and trust and faith and love and goodwill, compassion, already within ourselves. It really feels like this is the big lesson the coming days and weeks, especially now with all these big shifts, and especially in the next 10 days or so, when Neptune shifts, when we have that solar eclipse on the 29th of March, but even more so on a deeper level and on a more subtle level, background level, maybe over this entire next year. Because while energy might feel like so much moving forward, there will come this back pull by the end of summer, northern hemisphere summer, when Saturn and Neptune go back into Pisces. And then these lessons will be reviewed even deeper. And then all the forward momentum we thought we were able to do or achieve might have to circle around once or twice or thrice again to come to this deeper realization of like, oh, actually I'm not in control, but that's okay. I can direct with agency, but then I also gotta learn to trust and surrender and give it to grace. And then we can co-create truly from a place of co-creating with life instead of trying to force our will on it. That's it from me. Thank you so much for listening. Many blessings from India, Mount Arunachala, for the ones of you that know it, in Tiruvannamalai. And looking forward to hear some feedback from you. If you've got any, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe would be so kind of you. And looking forward to hearing you soon. Bye bye.